So welcome everybody. This is the first time ever we've done a large community directors forum. I know we maybe have people that are not necessarily directors, but are one of the team members that they've been assigned by their director. As you can see, I'm coming from San Francisco Bay Area on vacation. Okay, yeah, whatever. That being said, I do want to welcome you all on behalf of the association and Kelly to our forum. This is your forum. This is your opportunity to share with one another, to get best practices. What are you doing? What are you not doing in preparation for May 15th, quite possibly sooner, with the governor doing more proclamations, it seems like virtually every day or every other day. And so this is a good opportunity to share. We should not be really saying, well, we're going to wait for the governor to decide. That should not be our discussion. Our discussion should be, how are we moving forward? Because in the words, as I said this morning, Jamie Pollard did it in an interview, when we're not treading water, we're moving from treading water to swimming to the shore. So we've got to be able to get to the shore in order to move forward as an association, providing events and activities for our citizens locally. At first, probably what more importantly is this is, I want to thank you all for taking about an hour of your time today. I know you're all swamped doing a lot of other things, trying to get ready for the summer. I know Nick was busy thinking about his turkey, got that done. And then now what I'm going to do is shift over to Kelly Rose, who's our assistant CEO. And probably the one thing that everybody's really anxious about is, what are we doing with aquatic facilities? And are we opening totally? Are we partially opening? Are we remaining closed all summer long? Not only aquatic facilities that you may have swimming pools, but also what are you doing with splash pads? That's a major issue that's coming up with some of our communities. What are we doing with splash pads? So at this point, I'm going to go to screen share, and we've got about 6 slides that we used with our aquatic city workshop that we did earlier in the week. And I'm going to let Kelly talk about those. And then when you want to move to the next slide, just say move on, Steve. And then next thing is she'll talk about aquatics, what the CDC is using. And then what we talked about for the aquatics committee meeting, I believe it was on Tuesday. They had over a 2-hour meeting. So Kelly, I'm going to turn it over to you and go to screen share if I can.
Okay.
So hopefully you can all see the slides. Correct?
Yes.
Kelly? Okay, go ahead, Kelly.
Yep. Okay. So like Steve said, we added this to our CEU class for CPOs here that we practiced on Monday with a group of folks via Zoom here. So really the most important thing that you guys should be bookmarking here is the coronavirus.iowa.gov website. That is going to give you the updates. One of the places that you can find Governor Reynolds' proclamations. And as we all know, we thought she was out in DC yesterday, not going to make anything. And then boom, last night, we get another proclamation up there. So this is a great resource that we should be bookmarking. These were prior numbers from over the weekend. So when we gave this talk on Monday, this was what had come out on over the weekend here. So, you know, we've grown a little bit. I would say the good news is that we have for 6 consecutive days, and I'm sorry, I did not listen to her proclamation today, but I only assume that we are still on that downward trend of positive cases. So we are heading in that right direction of 14 days on that downward slide before she begins to open up more things here. So although this is a little bit of a old screen here with 77 out of 99 counties are open, somewhat open for business. We know that proclamation last night gave those additional 22 counties limited openings, which 3 things that it included were fitness centers. And we know the hot topic was an aquatic center was listed under that. We'll get to that in a little bit. Malls and just retail establishments. So notice that it did not say anything about restaurants for those 22 counties. But yet statewide, we came out with campgrounds, drive-in movie theaters, tanning facilities, and medical spas. So all of these are beginning to open, but yet very much with some limited restrictions. And then there was also a clarification on social and fraternal clubs for the original 77 counties that were open there. So if you haven't had a chance to read that latest proclamation, I encourage you to head out to that. That proclamation has been updated on our homepage of the IPRA website as well. Okay, so again, we all kind of know she's doing these proclamations at 11 o'clock there. Other information that we have posted or that we feel is vital, solid, concrete information to pass on to you guys is stuff from the CDC and the Iowa Department of Public Health there. And then Steve, are you going to play that little video?
Public Health Medical Director here at the Iowa Department of Public Health. I'd like to welcome you to our COVID-19 or novel 2019 coronavirus webpage here at IDPH. We've got a variety of resources that you can find to help you stay informed and know what's going on. We'd like to remind you to do things like covering your cough, washing your hands, and staying home when you're sick. Thank you for visiting us, and please continue to check back for updates.
Okay, so just a short little video as well there, okay? So really, these were kind of the questions that we posed then to this continuing ed class on Monday that we tried to answer. So where does this leave our outdoor pools right now? So as of right now, if you read that proclamation today where it listed aquatic centers under fitness centers that you could open on a one-on-one basis for those 22 counties. By appointment only, so that is definitely not feasible. So I don't feel that we are quite there yet for opening. But if you do read that proclamation closely, you know, take a look at that, see if it's feasible for your facility. But as a whole, opening to the public with maybe a 50% capacity, no, we're not there yet. Do we expect that to be open, ready for Memorial Day? We're hoping that you guys are moving ahead, draining, cleaning, dewinterizing that pool so that if and when we do get that green light, that you are ready to open. It's very much dependent on your facility, and what you and your city officials decide. That this is a strictly personal decision. It should be something that's blanket wide for everyone across the state. IPRA is certainly not making any recommendations one way or the other, whether we feel you should be opening your facilities to the public or whether you should not be. That needs to be on an individual basis. But once we do get that approval to open, we'll be looking at what type of formula are you guys going to be considering for opening. That we know that social distancing will still have to be in effect. So what does your deck space look like, area around your facility, that if you had to pull everyone out for, let's just say, a normal 10-minute pool break, do you have enough space on your deck for everyone to remain that 6 feet away with social distancing? The other issue, you say, okay, maybe we don't have pool breaks. What if you had to clear your facility out for a rescue? Can you still maintain that same number? So your formula might not be strictly 50% of what's in your pool based on the size of your deck. Some of you have very tiny decks. Some of you have large, expansive grassy areas that you could accommodate that. So one size does not fit all for everyone in the state of Iowa. We do know the recommendations from the CDC state that our lifeguards should absolutely not be the ones that are saying or monitoring that social distancing amongst the patrons. So please take that into consideration, that we have heard from people that they would be hiring, 10, 12, 14 additional staff members to take care of that. So the recommendations from Joe, representative from the CDC, left us with 4 good points during one of our meetings, about 2 weeks ago here, that he really felt that the guidelines that the CDC were working on and getting ready to release, and it sounds like they were discussed again at a meeting for the state of Texas, but we have not seen them in writing yet, that distancing will still be taking effect, whether that's on your deck, your bathhouse, the front counter, concessions, maybe it's just a play feature, maybe it's your lazy river. How are you going to handle that? I did hear word yesterday that when the CDC was on this meeting, I do not know if it was the same person that was speaking with us, but it sounded like face masks will be required for both patrons and lifeguards when not in the water. So taking that into consideration if you're planning to open or not. The CDC is going to recommend increasing the frequency of cleaning of your high touch points. So your restrooms, maybe handles on a feature, climbing the ladder, so a handrail, something like that. So anything and everything the public would be touching is just increasing the frequency of that cleaning. They have not come out and said with a specific number. Well, we normally clean once a day, so twice a day, that's, you know, twice as much. All we know is that if an infected person comes by and touches that area, it's going to be contaminated until the, you know, the next time that it's cleaned. We are hearing that sunlight potentially can decrease the time that that virus is active on that, you know, whether it's a handrail or a faucet, but we can't just count on that at this point in time. We don't know enough. And then again, just the lifeguards should not be the ones monitoring the distance for the patrons or the, you know, who's in a family unit. So if you guys are still considering opening your facilities, you're getting anxious to teach classes, the American Red Cross, Ellis Associates, Stargard, YMCA, YWCA have all made adaptations for their teaching. And these classes can be going on in a blended learning fashion right now, along with lecturing via things like Zoom, like we're on, or a Google Classroom. There is parts of it still that we cannot complete the classes at this time, but you could be moving forward as these students are just idly sitting at home waiting for facilities to open. Okay.
Hey, Kelly, I want to say one thing.
Yep.
I watched the 12 o'clock news, and the CDC has just announced that they will not be coming out with recommendations for, say, aquatic centers or restaurants as such, because they are mindful of what the president and the administration's message is. So I know that we've been looking forward to find out what restaurants need to do and what aquatic centers will do. For now, that's been put on hold until the president's task force determines what the message is going to be. So I know we were waiting for that, but that's probably not going to come forth before we decide to open pools. That was just came out at noon lunch.
So I had the privilege to be on a meeting with Mindy Ewell from the Iowa Department of Public Health on Monday, and she said that they were working on their own guidelines for the state. She was going to pass that on to me for a little preview to make sure to kind of look over to see if there was anything else that our group of Iowa Aquatic Folklore people or any of the other phone calls I'd been on, since she knew I was on a lot of them. So I'm going to hopefully get a sneak peek at that real soon and pass on any comments back to them before they're released. So now, unless they've backtracked on that as well, but that was the word from Mindy on Monday, I believe, or that could have been, no, I think that was Tuesday. So just 2 days ago, they were still planning on that. So one thing that has come up that we have heard in some meetings is that NRPA is not recommending the opening of your splash pads because all of the high touch points and the multiple cleanings that may or may not be able to happen in that. So it's simply a recommendation. They're making kind of a statement for the entire United States, but that did come up in one of our meetings here. So
Kelly, can you address the Governor Reynolds waiver to back to school and then follow that up with the last sentence on that slide?
Sure. So we know that Governor Reynolds has waived that start date of anytime August 23rd or later. We know that's been waived. So schools might be starting up as, you know, early as late July or around the first part of August. So this also needs to be taken into consideration, maybe reaching out to your local school to say, hey, do you know when you're starting? Because if we're not planning on opening our aquatics facility until June 15th, or maybe even closer to July 1, depending on the start time of your school, that also should be taken into consideration, you know, as you're opening. I don't want anyone to get caught off guard that all of a sudden they find out midsummer that our students are now going back to school early, and that just cut a couple weeks off of our summer plans. So an important thing to consider, one of those many facets to reach out to when you guys are gathering all of your information here. And we did another aquatic survey that wrapped up on Monday at 5 o'clock. The results were posted to our website on Tuesday morning. I just had one person from each community reach out to me to answer those questions. We did have 29 communities that participated. And basically it was, are you planning to move forward with opening? You know, will you be limiting the patrons in there? Will you be opening all of your play features? So if you're looking for specifics like that, that survey has been posted to our aquatics page there. No, it's on the homepage. Homepage under it's number 4 survey results there. So another good resource for you guys to use with a little bit more updated information compared to some of those first surveys 1, 2, and 3 that were all completed between March and the first week in April there.
And then about water in the pool.
Oh, yes, sorry. So it has been the recommendation from some of our pool supply companies that they are communicating individually with communities to say, hey, we feel it's important to protect your pool shell, your paint job, your filter system, your pumps, your motors, that we are recommending that you go ahead and fill your facility up and have it idly running to protect that for next year's pool season when we potentially, hopefully, are opening there. So what we want you guys to think about is that how do we mitigate some of those negative phone calls or responses when people are walking by on July 3rd and see pool, your pool looks like it's up and running, but yet it's not open to the public. So if you guys have made that decision with your pool supply company to be up and running, just how do we work with our marketing team to get out information via social media, emails, posting stuff that we can say, hey, for the safety of this pool, we're going to be having some water running through this facility this summer, but unfortunately is not open to the public. So that is up to each individual community based on filtration system, the type, whether they've got a liner, a concrete, plaster pool, all those things are taken into consideration on an individual basis. So whatever you guys come up with, but just be sure part of that marketing strategy is that you are communicating with your public why you are not open to them, but there is water in there. And we just wrapping it up here with NRPA's social distancing on our parks and trails. We know that it's important for everyone's mental health to be out and about as the weather is nice. This is great, but we want to make sure that people are still respecting that trails are most likely open, playgrounds are probably not, you know, tennis courts, basketball courts, some of those things are still not open yet, and to make sure that if you're out and about using these public places to just keep your social distance there.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Kelly. Can you talk a little bit about apologize, I'm closing out some slides. Talk a little bit about the iPerry website in regards to like our homepage and COVID-19, because that we want to be a one-stop shop.
Yeah, so we added a couple different things. So I added that new proclamation is up and going. Now I took down the old proclamation and I feel I should have left it back up there because that was 31 pages. What I didn't realize when I posted the new one, that at the bottom of that proclamation, it wasn't an add-on to last time. So I think I'll still put that April 27th one back up there if you're looking for that. For those of you that are in those 77 counties that are partially open, and then you can compare it to today. So I'll get that button back up there so you guys can compare that and have it. We also added additional verbiage today from those of you that are familiar with aquatics, the Model Aquatic Health Code, or now is referred to as the Council for the Model Aquatic Health Code. Basically, they're listing a lot of recommendations from the CDC on there, but we wanted to make sure and have another reputable site that you guys can refer to on there. So the other things that are on there are recommendations from NRPA and then our survey results. So really we are trying to be one-stop shop for everyone. We are limiting this to just really resourceful pages and articles that we know there's a lot floating around there, but we know that you guys trust us to be, you know, a source of great information, and we're just being very cautious not to put anything and everything that comes our way out on our website, because we'd hate for that to be some false information or something that couldn't be verified later on down the road. So if you're not seeing everything that, you know, you might be hearing out there, we are just triple checking before we put anything up. Don't hesitate to send something our way. Hey, can you guys verify this? Have you had this? If it can be verified and from a good resource, we're happy to post that for our members just for for easy access. And those that are members and are taking advantage of our member forum, please get on there. Our web folks have added a spot where you can upload PDF pictures that you can share with others. So we know there's lots of questions going around and people trying to stay in communication. So if you want to get on that member forum site, and that's once you log into the member side of the website, that's back there, and there's some really good questions that are dealing with programming, what you guys are planning to do, reopening, and then in that download area, I've uploaded a lot of stuff from the American Red Cross as well, and that's another very resourceful site that most of us in the state of Iowa are using the American Red Cross for our lifeguards, and they're constantly updating their stuff. I probably a couple times a week am in contact with Cindy Dasso, and she's sending me information. They just came out with May 1st being Water Safety Month. They came out with a bunch of information. And then again, yesterday, she sent me information on guidelines for performing CPR and different resuscitation methods and how those have changed based on if you're a lifeguard, layperson, or EMT, how those are going. So again, another great resource that's at our fingertips here.
I'm going to bug out real quick and say, if you look to the right, if you guys got the Zoom room chat room, I'll ask Kelly to address the CDC wearing face masks. Are they requiring it or recommending?
So
last thought.
Yeah, Joe had told us that they were going to be highly recommended. What I heard yesterday from that Texas call is that the word required was used. So now, again, if Steve states that the CDC is not going to put out those guidelines, then I would say at this point they're a recommendation, because it's not a blanket requirement to go out in public. It's only a recommendation at this point that we wear face masks. So I guess that's going to be up to each individual community to make that decision, whether they feel their staff should be having that or not. Kind of like, you know, we look at Menards and Walmart that they're requiring their employees to wear them, or they're requiring patrons that come in their store to wear those.
I might want to suggest is that, you know, you were talking about aquatic centers and wearing face masks for staff and possibly the public. I would encourage you to also think about, what are you going to do with your park staff that are out there mingling with the public? What are you going to do with your camps? What are you going to do with your Little League, your little girl softball, anything else that you're going to do? I mean, are your umpires going to be wearing face masks? I mean, these are things you all got to be thinking about, because I was seeing some highlights of a Major League Baseball game that had the umpires all wearing face masks. I don't recall the players, but I know the umpires all had face masks. So then you logically take that extension into what other other Parks and Rec programs that you've got going on. So be thinking about that, just not pools. So go ahead, Kelly, about the Red Cross, blended learning, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and let me clarify that I didn't add the wording that I know I've said multiple times before. When the CDC recommends the patrons and the lifeguards wear the face mask at the pool, it is definitely not in the water. Wearing face masks in the water, especially when they're made of cotton, is going to be a suffocation hazard. So when that extra staff is there monitoring who is staying 6 feet apart and who is not, I think there needs to be very clear rules written at your front counter that you will not be allowing patrons to wear those cotton face masks potentially in the water, whether they're just sitting on the side of your pool. I would have those rules very clearly written, because we know you're going to have that parent that doesn't intend for their head to go underwater that's still going to be wearing that face mask. So something that you just need to mitigate early on. That having run an aquatic center myself, I've been in court for something similar to this. And it's no fun to bring college-age lifeguards and yourself into a court of law and sit on the stand for stuff like this. So making sure that rules are clearly written, just again, to mitigate what might be going on. As far as the Red Cross or any of the other agencies for lifeguard training at this time, they are not allowing the full lifeguarding course for the fact that aquatic centers are not open. So there is a good majority of the class that can be done via the old direct links with the American Red Cross. And then they have allowed the use of the video, like the Zoom or the Google Classroom, to teach your lecture portion of it. They have gone as far as to write written protocol on how you can teach the CPR portion, as long as each student has the CPR mannequin, a face mask, an AED, gloves, everything. And then it is, you're working, each student works on their mannequin, but they kind of work simultaneously. So you've got one person doing compressions on their mannequin at their own place. You've got the next person using the AED on their own mannequin, and the third person is doing the breathing for them. So it does take a number of people to put a full scenario together, but that training can be done online. Very good written protocol of how to do that, even the angle where your computer should sit and how it should be angled down on the ground while the student's on the floor doing those skills. So again, great resources out on the website. Once the pool restrictions are lifted, then folks are going to be able to come back in, do that initial in the water pre-test, your water skills, and if you haven't finished up those CPR skills, and the final exam. So you're taking a good chunk of that class time and doing it right now. But there will be some limitations the Red Cross is saying, and you're going to use your best way to do social distancing when you even practice those rescues. So whether that's bringing someone from your own household that you're rescuing, or just bringing small groups in at a time, making sure you're working with the same partner that you feel comfortable with to make those rescues. You are going to have to touch them to go through that. And this should absolutely be something that's done for your staff as well before you open the facility for those orientation sessions. And that staff training, the staff needs to practice those rescues. So making sure that you feel comfortable with staff being in contact before you open that facility. So that will have to happen before someone can get that full lifeguard certification. There's no way to get that certification right now without completing all of the skills and just doing virtually. Does that answer questions so far?
Yes. What I want to do now is, we've got Shelley Simpson from North Liberty had to scoot out. She had some issues come up, so she had to take off her family. That being said, we've got about 25 directors, staff members from all the larger communities. I pick large as anything above like 20,000 people, plus minus. So because there are some unique situations that happen with larger communities that cannot necessarily be translated to small communities like Algona or West Union or Manning. So that being said, this is your opportunity. As I said earlier, I would enjoy having you guys speak up. What do you want to know? What do you want to talk about? And pick each other's brains, because that's what the Zoom conference call is all about. So right now, I'm just going to turn myself off, and then you guys need to jump on board and ask questions that your mayor wants to know, city administrator, or council wants to know.
Well, I guess I'll start off. This Keith from Ames. Ben, I saw that that you've postponed or canceled all activities or closures, I guess, through June 15th right now. But what kind of criteria are people using to determine if they're going to open or not open, their aquatic center or other facilities for the summer? And I guess that's what I'm curious to see, because Kelly, when I listened to you saying Red Cross says, bring a family member to practice your skills and things, and then yet we're going to put, these 15, 16, 17-year-olds on a stand who they're undoubtedly going to have to go in the water and get somebody, it's not whether or not can we open, should we open, and I guess I'm curious what people are using for criteria to make that decision.
Hi, this is Julie at Iowa City. I'll jump in on that. We are looking at a lot of things that are different from what we just talked about. First of all, financially, we're looking at whether it makes sense to open the outdoor pool this summer. And of course, we have 2 indoor pools that if we do open a pool this summer, it'll probably be one of the indoor ones first, and we do a phased opening. But first of all, we have the financial component to it. It's already not a, not a moneymaker, a lot of expense. At this point, the earliest we could get it ready would probably be the 4th of July, which means it would be a very short season. So we're still considering that, but it's looking more and more doubtful. For the indoor pools, as we open them, we're considering temperature checks for everyone that comes in to give some level of assurance to the lifeguards that the people that are using the pools don't have a temperature and aren't sick that day. But that's to be determined, and I don't see us opening anytime soon. We've canceled all of our programming through the end of June. Athletic fields are closed through the middle of August. We're going to be conservative in how we reopen.
Ben, we saw that you guys are closing Grays Lake to the public other than the trails, but Mayor County has suspended all public events through, it sounds like July 1st. What's the thought process behind that? And then, quite frankly, is the Iowa Cubs going to be playing, or is that going to be left up to minor league baseball? How do you see that moving forward within the city of Des Moines, and as well as your pools and with Austin Tasler as your new team member?
A lot of questions all in a row there, but yeah. Grays Lake first, just I think a few of you may already have the new technology. We have these new high-tech trail counters that can differentiate 6, 7, 10 people walking right by it and can pick them all apart and know the difference between a pet and a person. About 3 weeks ago, when we were doing the same thing you're all probably doing, is trying to educate the public about how to use the parks safely and responsible. It just wasn't working at Grays Lake. It's our #1 used park. Give you a quick stat, that trail counter on a Wednesday of about 62 degrees counted 34,000 laps at Grays Lake on a Wednesday afternoon. When we shut the parking lot down and the roads, we went down to 3,500. And using analytics like that helps our elected leaders understand the importance of doing this. And it worked. There's always going to be people that don't agree with closing things down. I took a lot of abuse from folks that said, my recreation is driving through the park, and yeah, they're probably going to do it the right way and be responsible, but the others that were sitting there tailgating weren't. So we did that first and foremost. That seemed to work, but not all parks are able to be shut down like that. But all of our parks and trails still remain open. We're not regulating that at this point because they're still being, for the most part, used responsibly. Ballpark probably will be a much different story. There's not enough rules yet out for Major League Baseball. So right now they are closed, but that after July 1st, if the mayor allows permits like that, we'll be able to. His permits are not related to parks and recreation activities. They're related to private events. So like our farmers market, our different festivals that happen downtown, large events. The pool discussion, I think it's all really helpful. I think we're all kind of looking for the same thing. We all probably have folks that are asking, how do you make those decisions? Not just based on what you see and feel, but based on some analytics. And that's the biggest problem. There's no analytics. I know personally, I would love the CDC to come out tomorrow and show me the unpractical rules so I could say that's just unpractical. For us, it's not really a budget problem. It's not very common that we don't have a budget problem in Des Moines, but that wouldn't be a budget problem for us. Even if it was only 30 days, we'd rather provide the service. And our city's probably leans more toward the poor demographic than most cities, so we want to provide that service. Our biggest fear is we have 2 rivers that run right through the middle of our town that have lots of drownings. So if our pools aren't open and the immigrant population that we cater to has no fear of the rivers, then we find ourselves in a situation that we didn't give them a safe, responsible area to go to. But we have to overlay what the CDC rules are, what the governor's rules are, and what our local elected leaders' rules are. And if I had to guess today, we probably won't be open, but we're going to hold out faith that there are some allowances that allow us to do something. I don't know what that will be yet. I think you're all doing the same thing. I think it'd be easier for all of us to say we held out until the very last moment where we couldn't, because it just wasn't practical for whatever reason, budgetarily or just the rules and staff safety and public safety. So that's kind of the way we're looking at pools. We have all kinds of unique features. I think some of you have, we have marinas, we have a zoo and a botanical gardens. It's just a really complicated deal. The one thing we all found out, I believe, is that no matter what size your town is, you have many new bosses and many opinions, right? that's just to highlight what we're doing. I don't want to take all the time. I'd just like to hear what other folks are doing.
Well, that's what's important about today is just sharing and just jump on. It could be a question. It could be a simple statement. You know, I'm interested to hear what's going on in Burlington, Iowa with Ryan and Brad down there because you guys are on the East Coast. I don't think you guys are in the hotbed at all with your 22 counties, but what are you foreseeing within your city? What kind of questions do you have for this great mind group?
Thanks, Steve. Yes, with the pool, you know, I think our biggest concern, and Brad can back me up on this, is the ethical aspect of it, and people have touched base on that already. The second thing is staffing. Normally, we're probably about 3 weeks out from bringing lifeguards on, and you know, I know that Brad has just recently reached out, and we're a little concerned that we're even going to be able to get staff back to open that pool. Kind of curious what other people are seeing with staff.
Hi, this is Marie Ware here, and we with staff are seeing only about 60% of what we would normally see for staffing. So, and when it comes to swimming pool, I just wrote a long memo to the city manager with all the pros and cons and the financials, and a lot of things are weighing on our mind, just like all of you. But if I really go back to just my gut and the safety aspect, which is always our most prime important thing, and then weighing in what Ben said, because we are doing the same thing when it comes to equity. It's like, how do we make sure those least among us are served? And it's really different to try to make the decisions we're making. But after working through all the different issues in a written document that you have to overcome, we'll see what the city manager says after he reviews it. But it really boils down to that you can't have a person do a save in social distance. There's a lot of things that we have to do to operate, even though your heart wants to be able to do this. Very honestly, I'm starting to look at it that my head says we just can't. There's too many unknowns, and maybe we need to just shift ourselves into a different mindset for this summer for how we try to help people. We don't know when school's going to start. Probably won't know for a little bit yet. We don't know if we can get them staffed. Even just trying entry, cleaning, you know, you go down the list of all the different things. It really is. It's like the hardest decision you have to make in my career of just thinking about it. But if he asked me in the meeting, that's really where I'm leaning, is that we can't do it. And we just need to bite the bullet and also tell people why. Because I think if you start explaining, that makes a big difference. So one of the things we did was we did a social media survey, just 7 questions about how comfortable people are once an all clear kind of is given, where you can do more gatherings. What do they think? And it really does show people are concerned. They want to get back to it, but they are concerned. And so with that, I think they're entrusting us to come to really important decisions about their safety. And so it is a very complex thing to be able to do, but I think if we can walk and talk our way through it, the majority of people will know. And as we know, there's always people that don't like our decisions. So I guess over time I've gotten a thick skin for that because we do it for the right reasons. So anyway, that's my thought process.
Julie, or I mean, Marie, I should say, is it possible for you to be the content of the questions that you did on your survey? Would you be willing to do that or not? And maybe other cities could do very similar to that, to give, as both Keith and Ben mentioned, which was an analytical or data-based decision-making. Is that what you guys used it for?
Yeah, I mean, we really wanted to know kind of where people were at because that just, you know, and it's always a snapshot in time, but yeah, there's no problem. I can, you know, it's not like it's at least data. It's not like it was you know, we made sure we sampled X. We sent it to anybody that has ever registered for a program with us and just said, would you do it? And then we put it out on our social media, and we got 770 responses, which is really actually a huge rate of response. So people are very willing to be able to give you their opinion, especially those that have participated with you before. So yeah, no problem. I can send that over to you, Steve, and if it's helpful, steal it all you want.
Yeah, I think that'd be great too. I'm seeing a lot of people nod their heads, so I think that might be a good thing to have because it gives everybody another tool in their box that they can use when making decisions. And I know Julie Johnson had just talked about NRP is publishing a strategy for phased reopening next week. Julie, can you tell us about the review committee that you were on for NRP?
Sure.
Which is perfect.
So
Go ahead.
yeah, it's not going to be a perfect document for everyone because obviously it's trying to cover a lot of ground around the entire country. But it does go through a checklist on each of your facilities or programs, and it asks questions like, have you done an analysis of your facility? Have you figured out how you can do social distancing within each room or what your capacity would be? What kind of policies and procedures are in place already for your staff, or what kind of additional training needs to be done before you open under the new policies and conditions? I think it's a really well thought out document. It gives you a lot to think about. It doesn't really give you the answers, but it does give you some metrics and some kind of basic steps and considerations. I would also mention that we just are right now doing a survey of our past summer camp participants to determine what we're going to do with summer camp. We are currently operating an emergency childcare, which is similar to a camp situation where we're providing childcare for city, county, and healthcare workers in Iowa City. And it's gone really well. We're up to about 17 or 19 kids today. And we figured out a lot of procedures with that. So I'd be happy to share that too. It looks like if we do summer camp, it will be in that same kind of strategy of small groups of 8 kids, but a larger camp of maybe like 42 kids. And Brad and the rec staff have really figured out a good way to get that all arranged and to get the disinfecting we need between groups and the policies that need to be in place. So we could share that too.
I would also, we did a survey. We sent it out on Friday to 6,800 people that were in our database, similar to what you did, Marie. Just 4 simple questions. One about if we were to open facilities in June, would you come back? There was broke out some programs from aquatic side, and then we just asked about programs. So it was pretty interesting that for our programs, almost every one of our programs, there were more no's than there were yeses about ready to come back. And then we asked, and we had just over 1,200 responses to that. So it was very good. We were glad to get that information. So I can share that with you too, Steve, if you want to put it on the website. So Julie, a question for you. So with what you're just talking about, how different is this of what NRPA came out with like last week with some of the reopening things that they had shared?
Yeah, I haven't looked at the 2 documents together, but I think this one is a little bit more specific, and it goes into, there's several more sections added to it from what you saw last week.
Okay.
Hi, this is Jan Herky. I have a question for everyone, more of rec programming. Is anybody thinking about the liability issue in regards to if you do provide some type of programs that are social distancing and one of your kids or participants gets COVID, is there a liability issue? Would you need to be having a solid waiver for them to sign? Just curious your thoughts on that.
I've been asking the issue, I think last week, and I've gotten no leeway, but I'm looking for some guidance at the Fed level or for the Iowa Attorney General not holding cities accountable. I know in North Iowa, Mason City, but all our surrounding towns are very hesitant to open any city buildings, courthouses, city halls, rec facilities, because no one can answer the question is, if there's an outbreak and it's tied to your center, are you as the city liable for that. And as of right now, I can't find anything. I'd love it if someone has told me they found something that kind of clears cities and department heads from that responsibility.
So this is Julie. We don't have exactly that on liability, but we've been working through the CDC childcare guidelines in terms of how we are managing our childcare, our camp program right now, and we will do similar for all of our summer programs. And what it requires is certain things like the temp check when people come in, very stringent cleaning guidelines, a policy in place if someone does exhibit symptoms at work, or I mean at the camp, how we isolate the person immediately. It has several things like that that we're following, and I'm comfortable with that at this point. We are at such a level of community spread that I'm not sure it's going to be possible to track it back to any one particular program or facility any longer. So we'll just do our best to keep everything clean and keep our staff safe.
We got the same input from our city attorney in Cedar Rapids, saying that if you have a policy in place that follows some of the recommended guidelines, you'd probably be okay. But anytime there's an outbreak, that policy is going to be heavily looked at. One person, two people in a big group probably wouldn't be a deal, but an outbreak, again, just like anytime there'd be an accident or something, OSHA's going to show up and see what you're doing and pick it apart a little bit, but would probably be protected if your policy's solid.
I was on a webinar yesterday where it was either yesterday or the day before, I don't know. I'm seem to be on a lot lately, but there was a link that I got from Sadler Insurance, and they have a sample waiver, a COVID sample waiver for participants that some organizations are using. Like I said, it was a national meeting, so I'm happy to put that in the chat box for you guys to look into. I've sent that to our attorney here in Norwalk. I haven't heard anything back from him as of yet. There was a lot of discussion on that. There was some other information, some COVID acknowledgement language from Redwood Insurance, but I haven't received a link on that one yet. And then Aspen Institute's Project Play also has something out there. But again, all that stuff I'm kind of waiting on an email with links to that other stuff, but Sadler Insurance link I do have, so I'll put that in the chat box.
So Scott, a question for you with, so you have a policy in place and everything. So how, what are you doing to monitor, or what are you going to do to monitor to make sure that everybody, all staff is following the policy? Because if we don't, then that opens it up as well. Well, you got a policy, but you're not even following it. And now I got COVID-19.
Right. So the policy that we're talking about it's not in place yet, because we're putting it in place to open the city hall and different bigger buildings that we have. So it's not fully developed yet, but it'll have things that we're working on is a mandatory temperature check, that sort of stuff, that'll be included. But I'd say it's no different than any other policy that you put out. If you have a policy and it's not being followed, then guess what? You're going to be in trouble if people can show that it hasn't been followed. But again, we don't have anything open right now, or not anything, but we have the golf courses open, and we have some social distancing things in place. So, but those are limited traffic and stuff. But once City Hall opens, that's what we're working on, trying to have a policy in place for how to protect the city employees there. And then we would just carry that through if we even do anything that would be at that level this summer. So.
Has anyone seen any guidance on, can you enforce mask wearing in public places? Because I know that's being challenged throughout different states right now.
I'm going to ask a question. I don't know anything, but you know what? There's been a lot of issues. Well, the media plays up those issues that of people that are enforcing face masks or face coverings, and then they're having issues with the public. So, you know, I guess I would work with your law enforcement and see what their thought process too, because they're going to have to be the ones that have to be enforcing it. I'm assuming your staff is not going to be the one that does it. It's going to be calling a police officer or law enforcement to deal with that. I guess I'm interested to toss this out to Mark Gallagher, who's got the Cedar Valley Sportsplex. I remember we went to Waterloo. We all want that beautiful facility, that multi-million-dollar facility downtown Waterloo. Mark, what are you guys doing with that facility at all? What's your thoughts?
You know, we're really waiting. We've got a million phone calls today after that bizarre proclamation last night. Wondered if they can reserve their 1 hour time slot to have 130,000 square feet to themselves. We're ready. We've moved equipment. The fire marshal has been here to give us occupancy in each room, assuming it'll be 50% at some point. The big questions we have are in the real active spaces like basketball courts and our turf. You know, our city attorney right now is leaning towards they can shoot baskets, but they can't play games, but that's really not a real easy thing to monitor. So we're ready to open, I think, general fitness wise, classes and more recreational activities. Until we get more guidance or until that gathering number of 10 goes away, we're in a tough spot. I mean, I think we have 18 graduation open houses still scheduled. You know, I don't see any way that those happen anytime soon, but we're really just waiting for guidance. We've done all we can as far as spacing our equipment out, adding electricity to spots where we've got a lot of room, adding electricity and data, so we're ready. But until that point, until we get a little more guidance, we're just kind of in a holding pattern.
Hey, Steve, if I can ask the group, how far beyond the May 15th deadline are people allowing refunds for reservations? We've kind of added like a 30-day buffer, but does anybody else have any other policies they're going by for like a lodge rental or facility rental?
Here in Burlington, we're pretty much just letting them go through the whole season. If they're in September, we're going to give them a refund if they want it.
Same here in Des Moines.
Same in Mason City.
I'm going to toss out, we had a full workshop planning committee meeting yesterday with Ryan Harkema, Whitney Garcia, Kelly, and myself. And the discussion was, A, are we going to have it? Yes, we are. Okay, because we missed conference and we need to get people to have their CEUs, as well as people will want to have an opportunity to meet and mingle and network and learn from others. And because you're going to miss NRPA, is canceled this year. So you've missed conference, you're missing NRPA. We think it's valuable that we need to have that engagement with our members at the fall workshop. Now the question is, are we going to have a virtual one, or is it going to be face-to-face? Is it going to be a combination thereof? I guess for the people that I can see with the visual, and at this point, your city has to allow you to travel. Okay, let's with the assumption is your city allows you to travel, and the IPRA is going to offer it. How many of you would like to have the normal experience, by show of hands, just raise your hand, by a normal experience of the fall workshop face-to-face in Ankeny?
Would I like to, or do I think it's practical? What's the difference? I'd like to.
That's what I want to know. We're actually going to be sending out a survey.
Yeah.
We're going to be sending out a survey probably in early June when we figure out more what's happening with the governor's proclamations, how things are shaking out. Do I think it can happen? It's our smaller event. My next question to you is, would you like it to be just a single day? You come in for a one-day workshop, i.e. you can have golf on Monday, spend the night for those that want to, and then just one day on Tuesday educational, then you're done, like at 5 o'clock. Would you prefer that opportunity?
This is Julie. I see Marie's comment too, and same here. Our travel budget is likely going to be completely cut for this year and probably next. So we probably won't get to do much of any training, maybe one day at the most, but that's part of the cost saving measures that we're already looking at as a city.
I'd add to that I think a lot of us are in that boat, but there's an optic too. So I think we're not the only city that had to furlough employees. So you look at even 6 months down the road, there's going to be folks that hopefully are coming back to those jobs, but going to travel or do things like that will be viewed really harshly by the folks that were furloughed, I would say. That's a Des Moines optic.
Yeah, Cedar Rapids wise, I would have a hard time saying that we'd be able to attend budget wise, but you know, who knows how long it's going to take before things start coming back revenue wise and things like that for sales tax and all those things. And we're going to have a lot of not just our city people, but organizations that we help support are going to be questioning if we're spending money when businesses are still closing. So
Ames has already.
So
cut
if
the
we could only
training
go
budget for
virtual.
next year too.
Go ahead, Keith.
Yeah, I was going to say Ames has already cut the training budget for next year as well.
Okay, because my next question is, just a second, Kelly, is how many of your FY21 training and travel budgets have been cut? Just raise your hand if it's been cut. I didn't say limited, but just cut. Okay, got it. Kelly, what were you going to say?
Yeah, I was just going to kind of piggyback on that. So if, you know, I know that those who have certifications, CPRP, CPRE, you know, if we did a one-day virtual, obviously the price is going to be a lot less. Are you, anyone beyond those, would you allow your staff that did not have that certification, would you still pay for them to attend virtually just for training purposes and not the need of those continuing eds?
depends on the cost.
Okay. We'll try and add that into our survey of, you know, of a cost range there. You know, we're already talking sponsorships and how do we get those to make it a go, and look at other, like the state of Illinois that did theirs virtually, that we're still able to get sponsorships and stuff to make it a go. So
I told our city manager that I think training is never going to be more important than it is in the next year, because we're all going to learn from this, and we're all going to have some unique and creative ways that we've solved some of these challenges. And he agreed. And so we are keeping our travel dollars and training dollars, but there'll be some rules, I'm pretty confident, that says most of it must be virtual. So
interesting. I'm glad we asked the question.
What else do we have? What's going on, Lori Brandenhorst in Fort Dodge? Got to keep you occupied, Lori.
I'm occupied with a lot of policy writing right now, like everybody else. You know, I feel pretty lucky listening to a lot of you all. And as Ryan can attest, and I've got Hannah Engstrom in here with me, is that we've been really proactive waiting so that when that switch happens, that we can go, and not like the poor campgrounds that just got notified last night that they can now open potentially on Friday. But we're taking the time right now to go over our facilities of what can open following the governor's guidelines. At the end of the day, some of the things like Brian, you asked, you know, the only person that can really make us do anything and things that we have to follow are those proclamations by the governor. A lot of the other things coming out that we're following are guidelines and recommendations. So we're trying to balance all those in, but I've turned in with staff our procedures for reopening the ballpark, reopening and doing our programming, what our Citizen Central, our senior center looks like, some of those things. And so really it was, we established goals and tasks to accomplish in these next 2 weeks. And my city manager and HR director have given me thumbs up to continue going down that route. So, you know, we're working really hard right now to kind of have field days at Harlan Rogers. So we can get kids outside, get families outside working under the current guidelines that we have by the governor. So we're working real hard on that. We're working real hard on what do our programs look like. We're doing a small version of a track program at Harlan Rogers, but it's with, you know, stations. Everything's getting painted. We're working on the strict, how do you come in, how do you go out, the bathrooms, we're working through those issues. And then we're really just waiting for what happens on the 15th, what happens on June 1. But we're trying to be ready and do the planning. So I feel pretty lucky right now that our city manager and our administrative staff is saying, keep going, work for it, try to get it open.
I'm going to ask Matt Jermeyer. You guys have got a wonderful splash pad there that I know you guys spent a lot of money on. It was fabulous. Did you know about the new national NSF guidelines about padding or flooring within that splash pad that just came out? And Life Floor is the only company that's certified to put down certain flooring down. Have you heard about that, or what's your thought process with the splash pad?
I guess I haven't heard about that. But in general, we, as per the last video conference, we're gonna err on the side of caution in our community as it relates to opening things back up. I think as of this Friday, we'll be, according to the community, we'll be the last golf course in the state that will open. So, and they're quick to point out all the other courses that are open. However, my mayor and council are pretty adamant right now. They're really pushing a huge campaign as far as Mask Up Waukee, trying to get people to start wearing them more in Hy-Vee and Fairway and those types of things. And they just don't think it's right that we would be opening things, especially the golf course, where they don't see as an essential function or essential business when they're trying to push those masks. So we're gonna err on the side of caution here. And but one thing I have learned is through this whole process, just through our communication within the Des Moines Metro amongst directors is, for the most part, you got to stay with the crowd. Don't be the first one and don't be the last one, but stay with the crowd. That helped us, I think, when we closed down playgrounds, is the more you can stay with everybody else and be consistent with everybody else, the better. But splash pad, honestly, if the pools do not open, we're not opening the splash pad, because I'll have 4,000 people at the splash pad and we will not be able to, even if the CDC or the state comes out and says we can open that splash pad, if the pools don't open, we're going to struggle to keep social distancing if we're the only avenue for water in the Western Metro.
One thing we did in Des Moines is, and we probably internally sound smarter than we really are, is we call our splash pads spray grounds. And it works in Des Moines. So we're telling everybody when the playground's open, and most likely the spray grounds will open, trying to connect those two things together to make people understand they're somewhat tied together.
Doug,
You're so
Byron, what's
smart,
going on?
Ben.
I was gonna say, what's going on in Indianola, Doug?
Yeah, so I think we're pretty similar to Matt. We've tried to come up with phased opening approach here as to when we think things are going to happen. We don't have dates on any of those, kind of like everybody else. As I say that, though, our programs and our facilities are closed through May 31st right now, and we'll obviously look at that here in the next week or so, see if we need to extend those. Our city manager, mayor, council, our Parks and Rec Commission, our pool commission, they're really wanting to, again, side on that side of caution. I think maybe we're going to be, nobody wants to be that first, but we're really on that, like Marie said in Dubuque. We really don't think it's going to be possible to open our aquatic center. Maybe we work with our YMCA. We've talked with them about being able to continue water safety or swim lessons or things like that as the summer goes on. At least we have that option, because we are obviously worried, like everybody else, about maintaining water education that's important for people. We were lucky to have all of our pretty much lifeguard staff hired before this all started, because Afton was going on maternity leave, so we've been dealing with this without one of our rec coordinators. But so our pool could technically be ready to go once we get everybody physically trained on lifeguarding. So I'm kind of like Robin. I know Robin Norwalk, and you've said that your mayor's like, we're going to open no matter what. And we feel like we're kind of the opposite, where they're going to take our recommendation and they'll listen to what the community says and what our commission says is take it serious so we can protect the people. So.
Robin, are you still around? Robin Leeper?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Oh, there you are. So then your mayor went, are they talking about like opening the pool and all shelters and the parks and everything starting June 1? Is that a mandate, or what's going on there with that one? Just so that some of the folks understand this, what process is in Norwalk.
Yeah, so basically the mayor had said, we're opening. So as soon as we're given the green light, we are going to go ahead. I mean, we're not, he just didn't want me starting to go down the road of thinking, hey, are we possibly going to not open, that kind of thing. He wanted to get the word out to all of the community here in Norwalk that, when we're given the green light, we're going to open. So now I'm just putting plans in place for that. So when the pool, when they say, yes, we can open the pools, following all CDC guidelines, I've got basically, it's not just plan A and B, it's plan A through Z at this point of what it's going to look like. Following all CDC guidelines, 6-foot distance, are we going to open the concession stand? How often are we going to clean lifeguard stands, diving board stands, slides? Then as far as all that stuff, as far as we'll just worry about, it's going to take us about 4 weeks, 3 to 4 weeks to get the facility open and to get staff trained. Obviously, if American Red Cross doesn't lift restrictions as far as social distancing, like if they're saying, if the Red Cross is still saying that they won't allow training. So like Kelly was saying, you could bring a family member in to do the training. We're not going to do training based on that. We won't do training until until the class is able to do it with each other. Because if they can only train with a family member, but they're still expected to get in the water and save someone, we're not going to go down that road. So then the other thing with parks and playgrounds, again, once the governor gives and shelters, once the governor gives the approval, we're going to open those and follow CDC guidelines, educate the public. So a lot of communication, education of the public, and I guess just do things that way. So we're building all of that, our mitigation plan in case we have an increase of cases again. I'm going through a long list.
That's good news. At least you gave us a game plan in case there's seated leadership that wants us to open, and then there's those that want us to continue to be closed based on CDC guidelines, Iowa Department of Public Health. That's a good resource tool, folks, is the Iowa Department of Public Health. It's got all those guidelines as well as the CDC that can help you. Also look at the Iowa Department of Inspection and Appeals. So Iowa Department of Inspection and Appeals, because they've got a lot of rules regarding concession stands and food service management, that type of thing. And I'm going to toss it to Nick Lennox, who's still thinking about his turkey that he's won or he caught. But Nick, what are you guys doing with the Prairie Ridge Sports Complex? You've got Otter Creek Golf Course, and you've got 2 aquatic centers that are multi-million-dollar centers there. I mean, what's going on in Ankeny? And you'll probably be the last person that we wrap up with today.
No, I was writing down, taking notes. Got a lot of good information here. We're actually having an initial reopening kind of meeting with police or fire chief and city administration yesterday. What's making it a little tough in Ankeny, I think, is because all the metro communities are so close. Polk County, the largest population, will be a hot zone, one of the last ones to get out of it. So to take that into consideration.
with the aquatic centers, we're not opening in May. I think we did a placeholder for mid-June, but I would imagine we're looking at rolling out maybe 1 pool, optimistically 2. I don't think it's the revenue side of it's not going to impact us. The one thing we will try to do is swim lessons we consider an essential service that we do. So we will probably have to drastically modify that and do some offerings. We would expect registration for anything we offer this summer, whether it's swim lessons, rec programs, you know, even if we are able to hold special events, to be at low registration numbers. We're guessing cut in half. Apologize to Matt. We opened our golf course today. Reopened. We were one of the 25% closed, but we reopened with restrictions today. So sorry about that, Matt. It's going fairly smoothly, but all of our staff and everything's wearing masks and gloves on the staff side, and no one's in the clubhouse. Everyone has to prepay to come and use our golf course. One of the things, it's making it hard. I think it's going to on us, is we have council members who want things open. They talk about it at the council meeting, and we have council members who don't want things open. So it's going to make it, I think it's making it tough on city manager on which direction to ultimately take. I think I said this last week, privately on my personal side, I don't go anywhere or do much. So like, you know, but I might take some liberties as far as doing things, but on the professional side with all of our programs and events, we're going to err on the side of caution. And I think the community expects us to do that. So that's something I think they trust us a lot with. So in Ankeny, we're having, again, with that council issue and some city administration stuff, I am pushing for decisions. Like, we don't have anyone who, you know, last time we tried to do some stuff staff wise on recommendations for facilities and rec programming. And then the governor comes out and speaks, and city council is like, well, we're going with the governor says, we want to keep those dates. So everybody's on the same page, which made it a little tough. So especially when our council meetings are on the opposite weeks of every time our deadline. So I think our sports complex, I would be surprised if anything happens in May. We have our little leagues looking, they usually done the first week in July. They're looking for options to play fall ball through early August with our lease agreements with them. The Iowa Rush Soccer Club, they're usually not playing in July. They want to play in July now. Lacrosse club canceled. We have talked about on the rec side doing modified seasons for our adult leagues. So Sam Volleyball, our slow pitch, if we're given the green light here in May and we offer like instead of 12-week seasons, we'll, you know, doing something like a 6-week and then if you want to participate in it, you do. Again, what they're talking about, concession stands, different reopening processes, even at sports complex, probably have concession stands closed. The pool, we talked about having concession stands closed. We've talked about swim lessons all the way up to level 4, have it be parent-child, level 3 be parent-child, and then when they're the higher levels, maybe not. Spread them out in the pool, but farmers market, we own the site there. They're planning on June 6th now here in Ankeny. We reached out to them and we want more or less a game plan. How are they going to make sure they're following CDC guidelines, spacing, that sort of deal, following everything governor. So they're going to have to give us a new game plan on what they want to do if they're going to hold it this spring at our farmers market, our city park facility that they do it at. But is there anything I didn't touch on? And everybody's expected to attend fall workshop. That was just a fun question Steve was throwing out. So no, well, I understand everybody's going on. So, but no, it's tough on the rec side is the hardest for the planning and programming. Lifeguards, we told we need a minimum. We got furloughed seasonal staff, so we only have enough. We're barely cutting grass now, but to get pools ready, we told them we need 2 weeks minimum, and that's if we have lifeguards in place. We have about, I would say, 75% of our lifeguards, but if we push it out, we're going to announce next week we're not open, maybe till mid-June, then I expect a lot of those kids to get other jobs for the summer or start looking, which would make it harder. But I don't know. I think I touched on most of it for us from the park and rec side. Maintenance side, I think a lot of people are doing this. They're either having guys work split shifts. Our guys are on. We're still working 5 days a week. They're coming in at there's gaps in it, and they're doing working breaks and working lunches. So it actually, instead of taking half an hour lunch, we're just considered a 20-minute working lunch in the field, and they're going home more or less half an hour earlier than they typically would with their regular schedules. But all the maintenance side, all our construction projects are, that's still going. So
Hey, Steve.
One thing to keep in mind too, before I toss it to Scott, is there's a lawyer in Illinois that brought forth the idea to either their state association or to something else, another body, that says that if you offer an employee, i.e. a lifeguard, a position, you offer to them, they accept it, but you don't have a summer, can they file for unemployment? And then that person's response is yes, they can file for unemployment. It's not their fault that they lost their job because the facility was closed. So I'd encourage you to work with Iowa Workforce Development or your human resource management team to figure out what, if I offer someone a job, do I have to put a caveat in there that says, you know, this is based on whether or not we actually have this season or not. So I just want to toss out. Scott, Hope wanted to mention something before we leave about his recommendation to his city manager.
Well, and first, Steve, I want to say I'm glad that Nick's working 5 days a week now, because that wasn't the case probably before COVID. So that's awesome that he's up to 5 days a week now. So it's good to hear. So I sent an email yesterday to our city manager just to start getting ahead of it. Originally, we thought we would try and open July 1st, just get 2 of the outdoor pools open July 1st. I'm starting to see that as not an option. One, because it's just going to cost us so much to get those open for maybe 6 weeks of swimming with all the other financial things that are going on. And then we don't even know if we can do it safely, you know, guards in and out of small areas for staffing. And then again, 25% of the revenue is what we'd anticipate. So big losses and high risk. So we're in the same boat as a lot of, you know, we have a river through town too, but we just didn't see that as being a viable option. So I did recommend we look at talking about closing them for the year at the pools. So that was our first really official notice that we think we should not open them, partly then to help us move forward with other things, right? So what else are we going to try and do? Smaller programming in neighborhood parks and stuff like that. We can reallocate our resources that we do have to make those happen. So that's just something different for us that changed in the last couple of days that we've decided to try and move that direction. So it went to council. We'll see what their reaction is. Ultimately, it's still their decision, but it is out there that is staff's request right now. So
I'm going to ask a question.
Hey, Steve, can I ask one question quick?
Go ahead, Mark.
My question, and it's pretty simplistic, but like Nick was talking about starting up soccer, starting up softball, are people thinking that's going to trigger when she increases the gathering size of the social gathering size? I'm confused on when you can play a softball game, or softball, probably even more so like soccer and things that are even closer together. We're just kind of lost on when that's going to kick off.
This is Julie, but right now the CDC guidelines still say no organized sports. And that's where we're waiting for those to change before we even consider anything. Also, of course, watching what the school district does and the High School Athletic Association. But right now, the CDC guidelines on their website say they do not recommend any organized sports.
Julie, do they have a timetable on that? Like, I know we're talking about the governor was going to give until like June 1st, and she's going to make a decision about whether summer baseball, softball was going to happen. And then looking probably later in the summer for whether or not football and volleyball will start, or soccer.
Yeah, no, the CDC doesn't have any kind of timeline on it. I don't think the NRPA information will either. If we're still at no gatherings of 10 or more people, I don't see how organized sports could be considered at that point either. So.
Hey, Mark and Ankeny, what we're doing with the farmers market to have that reopening plan, or, you know, what they're going to be doing, that's something we've talked about with our sports clubs. We're going to want, I think I saw in St. Louis, there's a tournament taking place this weekend or something where Little League games, there's no spectators. They're only putting 3 kids in the dugout at a time. Otherwise, they're sitting in their bag chairs. And then the umpires calling balls and strikes from the pitching mound type deal. So that's obviously all the sports clubs are worried about the revenue side. We're working with them on their lease agreements, but that's, yeah, I'd agree. It's about going to be impossible to enforce. And then again, we've reached out to ICAP on anything we're doing. We reached out to our insurance to figure out. I mean, you reach out to ICAP and ask them, they're going to tell you just to not have it because that's the easiest thing to do from the city side. So we're trying to figure out that line for us here in Ankeny.
Hey, Steve, real fast. Sorry, and cut me off if I really have to stop. But for the arena, we're following some arena type stuff, what concession will look like. The city's looking at like a ROAM, it's ROOAM type system, where you open up a tab, you keep your tab open. I put it in the chat, and pretty much they pay for it. And we're looking potentially, if we open, which I don't see us, but who knows if this is going to last a while, for the arena, for the pool, our golf course, and actually do a delivery system at our complexes for concessions. So we mitigate that people getting together at our concession stands. This seems like a fairly decent system that we've researched, just to throw that out for people that are looking for potential concession, keeping concessions open without having the conjugation by the window.
Okay. In that chat room, right on the right-hand side, if you've got it open, you can see that link that Brian has put forth for us. I'm going to wrap it up today. It's been an hour and 22 minutes. How many of you like this, that this was worthwhile? Okay, cool. Now my next question before you take off. The governor's going to do another, this next week is going to be very fast-paced with different proclamations coming up. So I would encourage you to keep an eye on the coronavirus.iowa.gov and you'll see those proclamations listed there. Keep an eye on those. We're probably going to schedule another director's meeting sometime, either next week, more than likely the week after, and Kelly will have to take charge of that one. I'll be gone. That way we'll have a better understanding and we'll know exactly where we're going. So we'll look for that to come forth in the next couple of weeks. We want to do before Memorial Day and get you locked into how we're going to transform ourselves into being active departments for this summer at least. So
Hey, Steve, you got your San Francisco backdrop. I'm pretty sure they have Wi-Fi in a Florida backdrop in a couple of weeks.
They might. I'm sure they won't, but that's okay. That being said, thank you all for coming. On behalf of the association, Kelly, myself, have a make it a tremendous Thursday. See everybody.
Good luck, guys.
Hey, see ya.
Bye.
Kelly, would you be so kind as to stay?
Yep.
Kelly, Steve, thank you for doing this.
You're welcome.